Welcome back to the Coach and the Cowboy podcast, special edition. We've talked about it. We went through the personal journey, we went through the brackets and talking sports, but we also want to have a really cool dynamic. And Josh came up with this idea called the Coach's Corner, and we're really excited to have Joe here. And Josh, why don't you kick us off and let's have some fun.
All right. Yeah, I am excited to introduce Mr. Joe Ellis, three-time Big Ten champion, three-time Big Ten runner-up, and five-time first-team All-American. And this is doing it at, not my favorite school, but it's the team up north. And we're going to get into it from
the leaders and best.
Yeah. Cheating at their best. I don't know how I don't know. He's going to talk about being a track athlete and get into his story here. But Joe, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Really appreciate the invite to come on.
I mean, I think honestly, after reading these accolades, I just want to see the trophy room. I want to see the ring collection. I mean, you're going to look like Tom Brady up here, some Phil Jackson, got everything.
They're mostly paperweights now, guys. I'm not going to lie. There's these things, you can't hang them on a wall. So it's just like, might as well hold down something.
No, they look good, man. They look good. So like Josh was running through some of the stuff, 3-time Big Ten champ, 3-time Big Ten runner up and 5-time first team All-American, and an academic All-American to boot. Right. Mm-hmm. So he's got bronze and brains. Sorry, ladies, he's taken. But I mean, how do you become, you're track and field, right? So are these in one event? Are they multiple events? Because when I'm looking at it, I'm like, how could you be a 5-time first team All-American? Don't you just play 1 year? Or is there different categories in there or different, disciplines within track, or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So for track and field, obviously a ton of events, right? So I was a 2-event guy. And they were related. So for the indoor track season, I threw the 35-pound weight throw. And that was an event that was designed to mimic the hammer throw outdoors. But they figured out how to make it significantly heavier and way shorter so that you could throw it indoors and throw it to similar distance that the shot put was going. So,
gotcha.
For example, I at my best in college threw the 35-pound ball 77 feet. And so like that, we in track and field, we do meters. So
sure.
I set the school record with 23.64 meters. But I like to think of it more like for your guys' perspective, that's about 3/4 of a way across a basketball court. So with a 35-pound ball. So that's quite heavy. It's a ton of force on you.
That's a small child.
Yeah, exactly.
Just awesome.
It was always tempting. I like, in the back of your mind, you're like, man, like, I wonder what and someone normal could do with this. Cause it's just like, I'm around like, regular folks, but it's just like whenever I grab it and then like a spectator will grab it and, they can't pick it up. I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty heavy. But,
for sure.
And then you shift to outdoors. And so you have the hammer throw, which is 16 pounds, just over 3 foot long, and it goes significantly further. So my best in college was 242 feet, which is
that's almost a football field.
Oh yeah, we're getting up to there where it's getting on for 80 yards across a football field with a 16-pound ball. So
who needs a cannon when you got Joe flinging the hammer, bro?
Exactly, right. So
fire in the hole.
Those are my specialties. Obviously, kind of wacky. Typically, when you talk about the throws, you talk the shot put and the discus, and you maybe remember the javelin. So these were always more periphery, kind of odd events. But that lends you to the ability to have multiple accolades like I have. So for me as an athlete, I had 8 Big Ten championships over the course of my career. So in those, I won 3 of the 8, and I got second in 3 of the 8. And then I got my first year, I placed 4th indoors and 6th outdoors. So out of my 8 opportunities, I showed up every time and was always competitive, which I was very proud of because, as I'll get into a little later, it's an unbelievably high stress situation.
I would imagine.
And so that's how you have the opportunity to have multiple time Big Ten champions and multiple time All-American accolades.
Okay. Now, especially track is all about form, and especially when you're talking about, the hammer throw and shot put, and especially with discus and everything else, because it's not so. If people can't really see your stature, you're a large individual, but you don't have to necessarily be, 6'7", 275 and ripped up like the Hulk to be able to throw this stuff. Isn't it all about form, technique, angles, momentum?
Absolutely. So my event, more so than the shot put of the discus, for example, is entirely technically driven. In the shot put, if you simply are strong enough and big enough, you can get away with being a pretty high level collegiate athlete, not necessarily a professional athlete, but you can be a high level collegiate performer. In the hammer, it'll own you, as my coach used to say, if you do not have the technical balance. That's one of the things that appealed, because I'm a sliver over 6 foot at 6.5 inches, and I have a 6 foot wingspan. I don't have a particularly large wingspan, don't have a particularly tall frame. In the discus, you're not going to get anywhere without being at least 6'3", 6'4", with like a 6'6" plus wingspan. It's entirely like a physically gifted, driven event. Whereas the hammer, you can go a long way. For example, the world record holder was my exact build. And so, it's like you can't throw with the best if you're not built with like the best in the other big events. But in the hammer, technique is the great equalizer.
Gotcha. That's awesome.
For your events, was there like a rival that you always came up against, that you guys were always battling for the top seed, or what school did they go to possibly? Or
yeah, two guys come to mind. One in high school, a fellow by the name of Brock Eager. He went to Washington State, so he was a Cougar. And we were he was always better than me. He was one of these guys who started when he was in 9th grade, whereas I started towards the end of my junior year. But my senior year, we were battling and always kept an eye on each other in college. But my Big Ten rival was Morgan Shigo, and he went to Penn State, and he's still throwing professionally. He's a great dude. Love to go up against these guys. You'd think in athletics, you have like these big rivalries where you're heavyweight fighters and you hate each other. But truly, like Big Ten was like a big celebration when you finally see all the guys back together. It's a very small crew. There's 20 guys who are throwing at a high level in the Big Ten each year. So them all. And like you genuinely celebrate their successes, because it'll give you that just higher gear motivation to come back and try and beat them. You want to win every time, but for me, the joy of track is seeing how far I can throw a ball, and then the medals that come along the wayside are great. But it's like more so all about just trying to throw as far as possible. And in order to do that, you got to be pushed by external forces.
Dude, that's awesome. So, there's so many questions that are like running through my brain right now. I love this. So is on the football field, right? And that's my forte, and Josh as well, and basketball. Obviously the Michigan Ohio State thing is a very real thing in those arenas. Is it the same in the track and field realm too, or is it more so? And is there a division between the field events, right, which you're talking about, and then the track events, which, the running and stuff like that? Like, it's got to be two different dichotomies. It's like the offensive linemen versus wide receivers and the divas, right?
Those are some great questions. I'll get to the latter one first about like the various.
Yeah.
I'm on the same team, repping the same uniform as like guys who run in the 10K. Famously, we had now Canadian Olympian, stud 10K runner Ben Flanagan, who's 5'5", 5'6", and 120 pounds.
That's a light snack at night for you.
Exactly, right. But he's flying around the track and he's like an
Mhm.
ultra competitive guy. And it's just like it's a bizarre world in which like your event just has like behemoths and tall, thin sticks, and they're all on the same team and their points all count the same.
For
And
sure.
so that's kind of the interesting thing about track and field. Because you put together a team when you go to Big Tens of about 30 guys, and you have a handful of throwers, handful of runners, handful of jumpers, and you try and cover as many areas as possible. As far as rivalries, it shifted throughout our career. Like initially, so me and my teammates, we actually created an organization called the Meat Factory, and that was our. I know Josh has never heard this, but this was who we were. It was like it was an identity we personified, where we were like, you almost put aside your regular human. It was like wrestling. You put on a character, and we were meatheads, and that's who we like designed to be. And we had our whole branding around it. My brother actually,
They made shirts or something. Come on.
well, yeah, we
Probably a
had it on
headband.
Instagram. It was excellent. Um, my brother commissioned, and I'll bring it in for you, Josh. My brother commissioned he did the words, and my sister-in-law did the illustrations, but they commissioned a like storybook for kids about the Meat Factory, and it's wonderful. It's really good. But we were just this tight unit within the larger unit. And then as far as like thrower prowess, who was the biggest throwers in the Big Ten as far as like scoring and being the most successful, that's what you went for. You didn't go for so much doing dual meets where it'd be like, we got to beat Ohio State, we got to beat Michigan State. It was like, we have to be the best throwing core in the Big Ten. And then it would be like, so it would shift each year as dudes graduated. So my first year, Ohio State was dominant. Penn State has been dominant like for a long time, but in 2017-18, we were on top, and that felt great. That was like what we wanted to do. And because it's like you focus so internally on yourself and the throwing crew. And at Big Tens, you remember that it is a team event, and your dedication to your individual crew's dominance helps the team. It really does. Like
For sure.
in 2017 at the Penn State Big Tens, the year I won my first title, the field events were responsible for 80% of the team's points. We did an incredible job as a crew. As a throwing unit, we scored the most in the Big Ten, and that's like kind of how you judge your success. The issue is, of course, years where the throwers aren't as good, the jumpers might stick up, but how you win a title is like so hard because every group has to contribute. But with 12 and a half scholarships to go around for over 50 guys, what
12
happens
and a
is
half, and that's it.
That's it. Football, every guy's either on a
Really?
full or a half or nothing.
Wow.
The track and field, everyone's on partials unless you're like a top dog. And so it's like what ends up happening is you prioritize groups. You have 2 for the throwers. You have 5 or 6 for the distance because they also have cross country. And so it's like it's really tough because it's like you want to bring in blue chip talent, but you can't pay them in scholarships. So it's like you have to like technically have like 1 or 2 guys on like the running events who can score in multiple events, and that's how you win a title. But it's hard. It's very hard. And I'll definitely get into that later as well.
Interesting. So nationally, again, we can talk about the powerhouses on the football field or, even the baseball diamond or whatever it may be, but specifically because the track portion is just another beast, right? Where, a team might be really strong in that department, but maybe not as strong in the field events. Like nationally, who are the big dogs out there, like perennial powerhouses?
Yeah.
Probably ebbs and flows a little bit, but like the blue bloods of, the field events.
Yeah,
Of
that's
the meat factory people.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So Virginia's always had a strong core. LSU performs incredibly well at these meets. Generally, if you get the unfairness that is track and field is you can be a national champ with like 1 field scorer and like, relays, sprinting. Cause it's like, if you can get a guy like LSU had a few years ago, Harrison, I think his last name was, he won the 1, the 2, and the long jump. With his points alone, they were in 4th place, and it's like, so it's like, if you can win nationals with like 6 or 7 guys, because with the Big Tens, your scores will typically be well over 100 points because you have, runners, jumpers, field. If you want to win nationals, you got to get like 60 points and like far fewer contributors. So it's like teams that you can have a focus as a team if you want to win a Big Ten title. And that means you spread out your resources and you try and get a lot of solid performers who are going to score for you. If you want to be a national contender, you do targeted scholarships and you give big money to 12 guys. And that's because, you're just basically surrendering the conference. You'll do fine because those guys are all going to win, but it takes more than winners. You need the solid rank and file points of like the 6, 5, 6, 7, 8. You need a lot of 5, 6, 7, 8 scorers to win a title. Whereas if you want to go to nationals, you got to have a lot of champs and a lot of people doing multiple events. And so it's like, it really depends on what the program's focus is. Let me tell you, Big Ten conference winning teams are way more fun than national winning teams because there's way more people being involved and it spreads around the kind of excitement to more people.
Makes sense. So, and I'm sorry, Josh, I'm just like, I'm fascinated here. So you had mentioned, you had mentioned that you just started your junior year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, literally, and you do hear about this sometimes in other sports too. Oh, this guy, didn't start playing basketball until his junior year or sophomore year of high school or something, and now he's playing D1. And that's a similar case of what you're talking about. I mean, how do you go from not even doing it your sophomore year to junior year? Now you're there, and 2 years later, I mean, you're Division I. I mean, that's a wild fast track. I mean, like you said, I mean, some people have been doing it since, whatever age 9, 8, 9, 10, or
I love talking about this part of my journey because it's like it altered the course of my life entirely.
Sure.
So before I remember watching the 2012 Olympics and hammer throw wasn't even on my mind, and yet 2 years later I was in college for it. I didn't even watch it. You know what I mean? It was like I'm watching Usain Bolt. I'm watching like, the 100, the 200. I'm watching it for the spectacle. I'm not watching because I'm interested in a particular track and field event. So what happens is Joe Ellis, the high school athlete, is a good high school athlete. I'm your standard football starter. I'm your standard like competitor, but I wasn't like a blue chip athlete by any stretch of the imagination. My junior year, going into track season, we get a new coach, a fellow by the name of George Matthews, who's just been a massive mentor to me. But what happened was he was coaching us in the shot and the disc, and I was doing fine. I was probably going to be getting to the districts in the discus, which is one step below the state meet. So like, I was like, I'm shearing up. So next year I imagine I'd make the state meet and that would be like the end of my track career, right? That's kind of like the way it's looking. Well, over spring break, the day before spring break, he brings these hammers to practice and he's just like, start whining in them, have fun with it. And then like, we all get interested. And then he's like, well, every day I'm going to be in West Seattle because I'm from Washington State. I'm going to be in West Seattle and I'll train anyone in the hammer for this whole week. Anyone who wants to try it. So me and a group of my friends, we were like, let's do it. Let's go throw the hammer. Cause it was like, I was like, why not? Right. So a week goes by. That Saturday we're entered into our first meet. So, we've all got 7 days under our belt at this point. And I go to a meet and I throw 103 feet and with the 12-pound hammer in high school. And I place 8th. I get 8th. And then I get handed a medal. And it's this tiny little medal, for an 8th place performance. And I remember looking at this thing and I'm like, hardware for track and field? I've never got hardware for track and field. This is pretty cool. And so I was frankly hooked. I thought it was incredible. This coach, continued coaching us in, and then like suddenly guys peeled off as they didn't want to do it anymore. But it was like me and like 3 other guys who like were pretty serious about it. And then I went to States that year in the Hammer. And so 2 months later, I went to States and I threw 159 feet. And, I was like, this is pretty fun. So spent the whole summer grinding away.
So you went from 103 to 159?
Yeah, in about 2 months span.
And again, like, is that just technique? Because now you know what the heck's going on now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm watching YouTube videos every day. I'm like practicing. I'm doing turns in the kitchen with a milk gallon. I'm just training, and I'm absolutely in love with this thing. College isn't even on the mind. I'm just doing this because it's like the most fun athletic thing I've done in my life. Anyway, so I train all through the summer, train into the fall. After football practice, my coach would meet me and we'd do some throws. I'd meet him in West Seattle after, on Saturdays after games, bruised up, because I was a 2-way starter in high school, but I'd still throw on the weekends. We do this fall series, and I end up going 191 feet in the fall of that year. So about 4 months on from doing it. And then, it's like all of a sudden it's like he starts talking about college and I'm like, oh, wow. You just keep doing it. And then in the winter I did the weight throw, where it's the first time I tried that and I started being good at that. But when they really started talking about college, I started getting interested because my now wife, then girlfriend, was a year older than me, and she went to American University. So she went from Washington State to Washington, D.C., opposite side of the country. And so my goal was like, hey, maybe this track thing can take me to the East Coast so we can be in the same time zone, and all that stuff, very cute. So anyway, I start talking to colleges. My coach is excellent at this, right? He's done it before with other guys, I'm talking to University of Washington. I'm talking to University of Idaho, Wyoming, and Oregon, and then randomly Michigan. And Michigan, because my coach met, one of these former coaches at like a conference years ago, just slides into the email inbox and we strike up a conversation. Well, I don't get into the University of Washington. All 3 of my older brothers went there. It's where I wanted to go. And it never doesn't happen for me. And not even as a walk-on, you know what I mean? Like they weren't interested in me as an athlete, and that one stung. But University of Michigan and the other universities all were. And going into March, most athletes are signed long before their senior year and at least halfway through their senior year. Going into March,
especially at the D1 level.
Right? Yes, it happens way sooner. So, however, March 15th, I want to say 2014, I open up in the Hammer and I go 215. So I throw 215 feet just about a year after I threw my first meet at 103 feet. And so that started getting a lot of coaches interested. And I get invited out on my Michigan visit, Oregon visit. They both are excellent, have a blast. And Michigan offers me 20%. Now, out of state Michigan, 20%, it doesn't do a thing, right?
I was going to say, it probably brings it back within somewhat level.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's amazing. Instead of 50,000, it's 40. Wow. What a treat. So like there was that, but I've been talking for a good minute now, so I'll let you jump in. But that was my introduction, whirlwind to when I was actually signed as a University of Michigan athlete. I got signed in May.
My question is, because I have so many now, like just listening to your story brings up so many. How is the recruiting process? Because, from my recruiting for football and Reggie's is probably a little bit different than track. They're not like bringing out the limo or the jet to come get you. I'm just saying, but like
I didn't have a limo or a jet.
No, I know. I'm just saying, but like, I'm sure it's a little different than like we're picturing of people committing on live TV, stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There was no hat process. If I was more elite at a younger age, if I was more elite during my junior year, I would have probably signed during National College Signing Day. A lot of college athletes do, but I was counting. It was in a race against time. You know what I mean? It was like by the time I got good, signing day had been done 3 months prior. It was like, it just wasn't a thing for me. As far as the recruiting process, it's unbelievably fair. And that can be a great thing or it can be a terrible thing. So you are truly a number on a web page. It's like Joe Ellis, I was 10th in the nation after I threw that 215. That was good enough to be recruited by D1 colleges. Yeah. It's like, you don't even have a pitcher, you don't even have your size next to it. If you throw far, you will go to school. If you run fast, there is a place for you. You can get your college paid for, you can get into university. So like that felt super fair. It was like, they first saw me on my visit pretty much everywhere I went. And, they were like, oh yeah, I guess he's tall enough. I guess he's got a good enough frame, but like, they didn't care. It was like, throw the ball far, you're good to go. That is in many ways a gift of the hammer throw because it's not done. It's like discus throwers who throw, 160 and, in high school are a dime a dozen. You're not going D1 at a big school. If you want to go D1, if you want to be a preferred walk-on at Michigan, you have to throw 60 foot in the shot and 180 foot in the discus. Those are elite numbers. You're very likely a state champ with those numbers. But if you want to be a full ride, you only got to throw the discus 16 more feet and the shot put about 6 more feet. So it's like there's this huge cutoff. If as an athlete you can demonstrate that you can get that little bit higher gear, you all of a sudden go from a preferred walk-on to a full ride scholarship. So it's really bizarre. But in the hammer throw, they would much rather take someone who's got experience and demonstrated aptitude than teach someone entirely new because it's so technical. You'll spend 3 years developing a guy and then have him for 1 year, 2 years competing, depending if he redshirted. It's not worth the money or investment. You'd much rather spend some money on someone who knows what they're doing and put some size on them, and then they'll just succeed at college. So that was more, I think, what people were looking at with me. They're like, this guy's trained for a year. Okay, he's got the basics. Let's put 40 pounds on him, and I bet he throws a similar distance with the college ball. That's good enough for points. So
and that's what they're looking for. So, I mean, obviously with this quick ascension into going from nothing into you're walking into a premier track and field program.
Yeah.
At any point, there had to be at some point when you arrive on campus or you're deciding to go to Oregon, which Oregon track and field, I know, is a top level elite program. I mean, that is the USA. Alabama, right? That is, the creme de la creme. But at some point you're looking at this and you're like, what the hell is it? Like, I didn't even know this thing existed 3 years ago. Like, I'm going to get found out. I better hurry up and sign up with somebody that's going to pay for my college. Or, did you look around saying, what am I doing here? Because, why me?
Yeah. So often you you're that voice was, either my own, my parents, so often because, it was just so bizarre to try and do this. Nobody, it was almost like, I wasn't even really telling people about the hammer until I was committing to colleges. It was just, it happened that fast. Relatives, I have a lot of family in Great Britain. Relatives would hear about it. We would call every Christmas, do a FaceTime. One Christmas it's, hi, yep, sports are going great. Yeah. The next Christmas it's, hey, I'm being seriously recruited for this event. Like, what? How'd you get here?
What?
Yeah.
What just happened?
My mom was deeply worried for me for this process because 20% 4 years at Michigan with the money my parents had saved up, I would be $100,000 in debt if it didn't work out. So she was the massive voice of caution. She, once it was kind of decided, she was all in, but she was just like, the wisest course would have always been community college 2, state college 2. That would have been the best course, but then you can't do track and field. So at a young age, I'm still astounded by this a lot of the time, but at a young age, I decided to bet on myself. And I think that was ultimately why it was Michigan over Oregon, because at Oregon, you're at a big name track and field team, a team that doesn't really care about the Pac-12 and it wants to win national titles. And so it was basically like, unless you're scoring on the national stage, you're getting books and that's it. And like, with the idea that like, one, can this coach get me there? That's the whole question. Two, he's definitely not getting me there for 3 years. That's my college savings. And that's 2 years plus of debt, even if I end up being the best ever. So, whereas Michigan, in 2007 and 2008, my coach led guys in my exact position to national titles. Americans, it's like oftentimes if you see a Hammer national champ, there's about a 50% chance they're from a foreign country, because colleges, Virginia's, UVA's famous for this. They pluck athletes from overseas, give them a full ride, and they win everything, because this is an event that like no one does. So Michigan, however, had a very fair policy, and that was, Joe, we think you're a 20% scorer. What does 20% mean? That means we think you're going to score 4 points at the Big Ten meet, 2 indoors, 2 outdoors. That's what they think it was. That's how the math works out. And so the coach told me, he was, an excellent guy, totally amazing. He told me that if I win, that's a full ride, doesn't matter. Right. So it's like, I had a promise of success, and you will get compensated scholarship wise, no debt, if you do it. And, what added that was the throws coach was the head coach. It's super rare in track and field. The throw, it's almost always a distance or a sprints coach, typically distance. And so, you're getting recruited by the guy who actually calls the shots. It's not just like empty words and he has to go beg the head coach for money to actually fulfill it. He's like, I'll just do it. And so that was a big reason. So I was betting on myself. I knew within 2 years, all of my parents' college savings would be gone. That meant like after 2 years, I would have to earn more money. And that's exactly what happened. So I go on my 20%. I'm immediately redshirted. I'm redshirted because I'm a string bean trying to throw a college implement. You do need to get strong. And I put on 30 pounds that first year and, just did school and trained. Next year, I'm still on 20% because I haven't performed. Well, I get 4th indoors in the weight and 6th outdoors. That means I'm eligible for a 40% scholarship, and that's what happens. Well, that year, obviously, 40% is great. It's not good enough. I'm going to be 60 grand in debt minimum by the end of my career if I don't earn more money. What do? I go indoors, and I get 2nd in the Big Ten to my teammate Grant, who was my best man at my wedding. Excellent man. But and it's what I'm talking about, the meat factor. It's like we were good. Like, it's like he wins the weight throw and breaks the school record, and I get 2nd in the weight throw. He ends up going on to be runner up in the national meet, and I get 7th. He's a year older, so it was always like big brother, little brother mentality. But outdoors that year, I do win. I win the Big Ten title, which means that following fall and for the remainder of my career, I'm on 90%, which means I have no college debt. And it was an unbelievable boon. It was like so risky for 18-year-old me to bet on myself like this, but so cool. It worked out. It was like, not only do I graduate an undergrad, I get a paid for master's degree in education, which I'm now following with my career. It's what I want to do. It's my path. And so it's just like, I oftentimes think back and I'm in awe of like, this is a situation I truly am blessed to be in. It's like obviously a tremendous amount of personal hard work and verve and like effort and all this stuff that like went into it. But like, so much had to go right. I didn't get hurt in college. Seriously. My parents had to save up enough money to initially get me through those first 2 years. It's like, there's so much stuff where it's like, you're not exactly swimming in the ocean on your own. There are, life rafts, but it's just like, it's could have gone horribly wrong very easily.
For sure. Now, you said you gained 30 pounds your freshman year. I think Josh gained 30 pounds his freshman year. I did too. But
it's just what happens. They introduce you to the dining hall, and it's like, I don't need much encouragement here.
Exactly.
Whoa. You went to a good school. Our dining room was reminding me of like a YMCA camp. Okay, easy.
Hey,
And remember,
I will.
it's the freshman 15. Okay, all right,
Yeah,
easy.
that's fair enough.
Well, we had to pick up slack for other people.
Yeah, you end up taking other people's swipes, but give me that.
Yeah, the girls.
Oh boy.
I was gonna say something with that.
Oh, I know. So you said you gained 30,
Go ahead.
extra 30 pounds of muscle and stuff. And you said like you
Yeah.
trained, went to school. Can you give us like more of like a backdrop? Because like being a student athlete, I know we've talked before about how you've like kind of seen some of the football players and stuff, but how is that like a day in the life kind of thing? So you wake up, blah blah blah, go do your thing.
Yeah.
Is there like certain thing like meetings you have to meet, or you need a tutor, just like maybe class is like hard, stuff like that? Or do people on campus know you? Like, oh, this guy does track and field. You know what I'm saying? Kind of stuff like that.
The last part first. No one knows you. You have the athlete backpack and the athlete coat, and they say, this guy's an athlete. That's all. That's all you get. 40,000 undergrads, University of Michigan. I was even by the time I was a 2-time Big Ten champ going into my last season, it's like you're still a small fish in a big pond. It's like you might be a big fish in the track and field world, but regular student body, no way, not a chance. As far as a day in the life, man, college was the freshman year was the biggest wake up call I could have ever had. Academically, I was not ready. Athletically, I was not ready. And it was wonderful that I was redshirted and I didn't have to burn a year of competing, because I would have just got owned. I would have been lucky to make the Big Ten meet. I would have placed probably in the bottom 3. It was tough. Academics, I'm not ashamed to admit it. I ended with a 2.2 after first semester. I got wrecked. It was like I was just so unready for it all. Athletics, I got super sick, that first year, because all of a sudden you're packed in tight, and it's like you're just not, it's terrible. It was like emotionally I was so in the dumps from this first year, because it's like truly you get up, you do have to do all your classes. You're typically in class from 9 to 1 or so, go get some lunch, and then you're practicing from 3 to 6, 6:30, and then you have a tutor from 7 to 8, and then you try and get some dinner, and then you go to bed, and it's brutal. And it's like hey Joe, when do you have a chance to do homework? You do not. It's like you either sacrifice your athletic ability the next day by staying up late and doing your homework, or you just get it in all on the weekends, and most people did it all on the weekends. For me, I was fully aware of this imminent debt over my head, and so I was an athlete student for my first 3 years of college. Athletics came first. It was what I was there for, and then I tried to survive as a student. I am proud of my trajectory as a student, because that first semester was my worst. By the time I was done, I was getting over a 3.0 in my undergrad classes. And then as a master's student, I had it all figured out, and I ended up with a 3.7 GPA. And that was the year I got academic All-American. So, but it's like, young Joe was just like, listen, oh no, I got a C on a test. Oh no, I got a D on a test. I don't care. Why? Because that passes, and that enables me to still compete and enables me to still do this, because it's like, would I have rather got a higher GPA but then did worse in track? Absolutely not. I stand by that to like this day. It was like, I was there to be an athlete and get an education. And initially I was an 80% athlete, 20% student. And then, that evened out towards the end of my career. But it's a balance you have to find for yourself. And go too much down the athlete avenue, and you get kicked out of school for ineligibility. And so you have to find the balance. There are people who can do both. They are rare. They are very rare.
So how do you, because you started, it's so funny because we all have 24 hours in a day, right?
Yeah.
And your level, when you entered into the University of Michigan, I'm not going to say go blue, but entered into the University of Michigan. I got to say that because of Josh. Your academics, like you just said, were low. Your athletic performance was low. But by the time, 4 and 5 years passes, you're clear, you're off the screen because you're academic All-American, you're an athlete All-American, but you still have the same 24 hours in a day. Like what changed? There had to be some change. Did you stop playing, GTA? Did you stop, messing around with girls? I don't know. Like what was the shift? Was there a trip home, during the summer or during a break, and there was just like a shift that happened? I mean, there had to be something that changed in the schedule and in your mind. Like, what is that?
Yes. Academically, I never took more than 12 a semester, 12 credits, which broke down to 3 classes. My first year, I took 16. You can't do 16 as a full-time athlete, in my opinion. It breaks you. That summer of my first year, I took science at a community college to get credit, so I didn't have to take it because like a lot of these times science at University of Michigan, other big colleges, they're weed out classes for pre-med and like, for science majors. So it's like, yes, LSA majors, like, language arts majors have to go in and take these for prereqs, but it's just like the grading is merciless because they want to like, they don't care that you're there. You'll be ground up in the machine just like everybody else if you're not ready for it. So that second year coming back, it was 12 credits. Second was I started living off campus. That helped a lot. The lifestyle of the dorms did not fit with me. Way too much going on all the time, too many people. I lived in like almost like a residential area, with the other throwers, and it's like you're totally insulated. Like it's like we were throwers in the house. We all knew what we had to do athletically. We all knew what we had to do academically. It was a disciplined, group of guys. That was the big thing. The other nice thing about throwing is it's like the stronger you get, the easier it gets. It's like I maintain to this day. I talk to people and they're like, "No, you were a fine technician." I maintain I was one of the worst technicians to throw as far as I did. I just never really got the event. It definitely haunted me as a professional athlete trying to throw even further because it's like that way, everyone's, pretty strong, but everyone's just so much better technically. As a collegiate thrower, I was just like, I'm just going to squat the house, clean the world, and try and get better technically every day. But, the first year I won Big Tens in the hammer and the weight. I was simple, I was a very simple thrower. And so it's like, I stopped trying to become like these European great athletes I saw on YouTube all the time because that just wasn't me. These guys have been throwing since they were 6, 7, 8. I started when I was 17, so it's just like, you have to just shorten the time. And how you do that is you get really, really strong. So hammer got a lot easier the stronger I got. School got a lot easier the fewer credits I took. And, once I got all prereqs out of the way, I didn't have to take math anymore. Didn't have to take language anymore. All of a sudden I'm doing history and writing classes, things that I was already pretty good at. And everything got easier. Homework in those classes is also way less. You have large assignments that are culminating once a month or so, but you have time to do those in bits and pieces. Writing a 20-page essay is daunting, sure, but you write 2 a semester. You're not doing math every night. You're not doing science every night. It meant like I could shift stuff around, and it meant like for like 4 nights in a row I wouldn't have to do homework. I could focus on my sport, and then for 3 nights I would gather primary sources and I would write, and I'd be a student. So that's pretty much how it goes. It's like you got to recognize what you're good at and what you're bad at, and build on those things.
Love it.
Do you also think, like, because I remember my first year, you had that like freedom a little bit, and you're kind of like figuring it all out, and you're farther away because when I went to school, I was only 45 minutes away from home.
Not 2,000 miles.
yeah, I was gonna say, but like there had to be some like homesickness. I know your sweet home Alabama, your girlfriend, right, in Washington D.C. But like there had to be a little bit where you're like, okay, I gotta like not, get focused, like you were saying, because you had that debt. But like, was there a little bit your first beginning first year of Michigan? You're like, oh, I've got this freedom. I'm kind of figuring this out.
I am a homebody in every sense of the word. I just don't do well. I really don't, and that's one of those things where after my first semester, I was like, something's got to change. And what changed was every Sunday I would FaceTime my parents. And that's continued to this day. I FaceTime every Sunday, and it makes it okay. Because it's like, instead of having to wait 3 or 4 months to, see them in college, and less now, you see them every week, and it's totally fine. And it gets normalized. And it's like, first semester, I would have never considered FaceTime my parents. I was like, I'm finally free. I'm out of there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I needed them bad. So I initiated it, and it just continued. And then it's like, that's what grounded me. Another absolute boon was my high school center. I was the right tackle. He was the center. He went to Michigan. He's truly smart. Didn't need the athletic boost. Truly smart guy. He now programs satellites in Tennessee. He's like a genuinely brainiac dude. Went to his wedding earlier this year, and he's doing great. But he was on my floor. Out of 40,000 undergrads, he was 6 doors down to the right.
You didn't get to pick your roommate?
Nope. As an athlete, you signed to somebody on the track and field team. And he was just there. And so that was a taste, a little bit of home there. We obviously, we went down like different friend group and paths in college. But like, it was always wonderful having him there. Just, reminding me of home. But yeah, I would say the FaceTiming was huge. Called my girlfriend a lot. We wrote letters to each other. Her idea, but I liked it. It's one of those things. And then it was just like, it flew by. The other thing about college, at least semester systems, it's not that long. You know what I mean? It was like, we're talking maybe just about 4 months a semester, a little bit less. And then like I went home and took community college out of my home. So it was like my athlete buddies always gave me a hard time. He's like, Joe, your first year, you left before Big Tens. You left like May 1st, and you came back on campus September 3rd. It was like I was at home. I was taking community college classes. I was training at home. I was doing all that stuff. And like that absolutely cured my homesickness, because then it's like all of a sudden you're like, I can go back. I can do it again. And, it just all got easier the longer you did all that.
So when you went back to Washington, right? Because you're from Washington. So you went back there, you used to work out like at the high school gym or whatever? Or...
Yeah, I would work out at the high school gym. I would work out at 24-hour fitness.
Sure.
And I would throw with my high school coach.
That's awesome. That is so cool. Yeah.
It's not lost on me just how bizarre the whole situation is.
Bro.
It's like, you guys probably never thought about the hammer throw as much. Most people don't think about the hammer throw much, but it gave me a college education, and it was like, gave me like a lot of, advantages, and, became like my most favorite thing.
Well, like you said, you bet on yourself to get that extra money, get that scholarship, that 90%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So after you finish up with Michigan, graduate degree from there, then what do you transition to then?
Yes.
I mean, is it just, hey, that chapter's over now? I'm moving into the professional, my job for the, next 40 years of my life, or what? I guess what's this transition look like?
It was interesting. The post-collegiate lifestyle in the United States is not glamorous. If you are a top 10 athlete in the world, you're getting a livable wage, no doubt about it. Most of your money's coming from prize money, so it's not exactly a stable living at the best of times. But coming out of college, I was coming off not my worst year, my second best year. But you'd like your last year to be your best year, and that just wasn't the case. And so I was like, I'm going to do the professional thing, but I need to support myself. So I got a long-term sub position at a school. Well, I graduated in December 2019, and what happened a couple months later again? World shut down. Yeah. So terrible, right? Track and field season 2020 canceled. Not a thing. So I work virtually for the remainder of that year, and I train. Anyway, so I keep training, going into 2021. kind of my bounce back year. It doesn't go well. I don't throw 70 meters, and that's like the staple for like a high level collegiate athlete. Now I'm professional, and I haven't even thrown 70 meters. That's 230 feet. I threw 242 as a redshirt junior, as a true senior. And so I'm like, man, this is tough. I'm going to give it one more year, and then I'm going to call it up. And so we get a new coach because my college coach, I love him. He's incredible. But he always told us, when you're a post collegiate, you don't pay my bills. University of Michigan pays my bills. So you are bottom, or depending top of the totem pole, I think it is, because technically the bottom is the most important. But regardless, you're not a priority. And this new guy who came in, Colin Beavers, he was very interested in working with me because he didn't have a lot of hammer experience. So he was like, awesome, this guy's gonna be my guinea pig, honestly. Anyway, so thankful. This guy immediately was what I needed. Helped me get through, was setting up for PRs. That indoors, I throw my first weight PR in nearly 4 years, and I break the British national record. And I'm ranked, I think, third in the world that year, fourth in the world in the weight throw, which was like a huge deal for me. Heading into outdoors, I then PR in the hammer, first time in 4 years. It's amazing. Things are good. I get selected for the 2022 Commonwealth Games because we haven't talked about this much, but I decided to compete for England and Great Britain because when you were in college, the University of Michigan would pay the plane ticket to head over there and compete in their national championships. Now, what this turned into was just an amazing opportunity to see my family. It was the last time I saw my grandfather was through one of these trips, and I'll be forever thankful for that. Same thing. I got to stay a week, just me and my grandmother and my dad. And that was amazing. It's just wouldn't change it for the world. People are like, oh, what about patriotic pride? I'm like, I got to see my family, that tops it all. I can be an American for the rest of my life, but this is me honoring like my heritage as like an English person, and, wouldn't change it for the world. But so I get selected to compete in the Commonwealth Games. And for you history buffs out there, the Commonwealth is all of the previous, members of the British Empire. So, we try to forget some of the bad stuff, all the bad stuff. But I get selected for England and get to compete for them, which was amazing. It was the biggest meet of my career. And I shell out. I do really well. I get fourth place. And on my last throw, I move myself into third place. And then I watch as the only guy who can beat me beats me. So, that's the thing about throwing, where it's like you have 6 attempts, and it's like you lay your cards on the table and it's a winning hand, and then someone puts a royal flush over the top of you. What are you going to do? But I was unbelievably proud of myself because I have had a terrible experience competing in England. It's like you get off a plane and you try and throw at a high level, you get wrecked. I got wrecked every time except at that experience. And that was just amazing because it was in front of about 50,000 people. And, it was truly a high level elite competition, and on the home field. It was in Birmingham, England. And so, there were people shouting and screaming for your successes, and it was an unbelievable experience, and got me like super rejuvenated and back into the track and field world. That led to this past year when I was shaping up for an even better year. Things were looking up. I was expected to throw around 250 feet in the hammer, which could have been a periphery world champs bid. And on my birthday, the week of my opener, I got in a car accident, and all that experience, all that time gone. It's like it didn't matter that it was a minor accident. What mattered was that it was 4 weeks of basically no athletic experience. Lincoln, buddy, you got to get out of here. my cat's trying to come hang out. But and that was just super awful. Like it was like, man, I trained like for 10 months and it's just gone. And so trying to come to terms with that, I decided that I had, I was so proud of my Commonwealth Games experience. I was so proud of how far I'd thrown. I was like, I could keep going. I could try and make another Olympics, but I'm really holding my family back at this point. It's like we're living, paycheck to paycheck. It's tough. My contributions were almost nothing. And I was like, it's just not fair anymore. You know, I've done enough. I'm proud of it. Let's be done. So I decided to hang up the track, field spikes, and start like, you know, trying to get a job, trying to make some money.
Sure.
But before I did that, I was like, oh man, you're only this humongous once, you know, or you should only be 270 pounds once. And I was like, I'm pretty close to 300 pounds. Let's give it a go. And so while trying to get a job, trying to employment, I bulk up to 300 and I see if there's a world out there for Joe Ellis, the football player. And
I knew you were going to say that.
And so that's kind of what I've been up to. And that was when, you know, I was doing football stuff, you know, going to camps, training for combines and stuff, right up until my current school reached out. And I was like, I mean, this is too great an opportunity. Let's try and, you know, do both until the end of March. And then get some like great numbers out there, show it's like, you know, athletically I could compete at this high level. It's just, it's who you know and who you don't. I don't know anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, so that's really what this weekend's coming up to, where it's like, you know, I'm going to be 300 pounds. I'm going to be trying to run a sub 540, 40 reps on the bench, 30-inch for, you know, all this stuff. That to be like, look, you know, this marks right up there with the highest performers at the combine. You know, I could have done
That's
it.
crazy.
And, you know, that's kind of where I'm going to leave it, going to start to shrink down slowly to where next fall, Josh is going to be like, who is this guy? You know? So yeah, that's pretty much brings us to the present day though, athletically.
Yeah. So obviously, you know, I'm from a small town. And when we ran track, you ran around the football field. The track and the football field were one, right? Obviously, when you're talking about the Big Ten level or Division I football, you're not running around the football field, right? There's no tracks around football fields.
No.
So I guess what are the coolest places that you've been? Because I don't know, like the different places. I mean, we could talk football stadiums, we could talk baseball, we could talk basketball, and you know. So if you had to rank like the top two places, maybe the best one in the Big Ten outside of Michigan, because you're probably biased, and then maybe nationally, like what is this like a super cool place to throw and be?
Well,
you should do top five. Like
top
five places.
The top five presented by Joe.
And then you can even throw in the worst one that you've been to for fun.
Well, I do want to shout out Michigan real quick to start, because when I got there, we were still training in the indoor-outdoor track. And this outdoor track was the one that Jesse Owens set the long jump world record at, you know, back in the like the 30s and 40s.
You know? Yeah.
So you know, because it's like that's like history right there. There's a huge plaque right outside, you know, and obviously he's an Ohio State guy, but it's Jesse Owens. It doesn't matter, you know, he's an American, you know, before anything, you know. Cool. And so this is the same track, you know. I practiced on the same track that, you know, Jesse Owens years before just lit up the world. And then indoors, that building was, you know, like they competing from like the late 50s, 60s to like, you know, to my year 2016. My first year competing there. Well, they were building. So for 2017, they had built this brand new facility. This facility, and this isn't biased here, this is a top 5 track and field facility in the world. Absolutely tremendous. 300-meter indoor track, and then inside that, a 200-meter hydraulic bank track. And if you guys are unfamiliar with that, think like a bicycle velodrome where it's banked on the sides. And so it's like, that's hyper expensive. But for a thrower, it's glorious. We had a indoor to indoor ring where you'd throw into a big tarp and it would hit it and then bounce down. But even more impressive, we had a huge hangar style garage door that if it was snowing outside, you would throw from inside where it was dry and warm through this hangar to outdoors. And it was a massive, massive thing. And it was just like, you're like, wow. So shout out to Michigan, amazing facility. Let's see. Track wise, it's hard to discount Ohio State because they had an enormous outdoor track that was like famous. The throwing area objectively sucked, but because it was outside and far away, but their track, you know, huge tiered bleachers, it was excellent. Who else in the big? I always liked Penn State because I won there and I was very happy with it. But like their athletic campus is amazing because you have the football. You know, it's like you throw like towards the football stadium and it feels very cool. Oregon was astounding because historic Hayward Field has recently had a glow up.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always like historic and like excellent. But for the world champs in 21, they revamped it massively. Like people love it there. It's like a stadium space for probably 30,000 people. For track and field, that's a pretty sizable stadium. And amazing throwing facilities. They've got it figured out there. Who else is there? Texas. Texas is a beautiful facility. They host nationals a lot. Yeah, it's like there's just something about like the nationals level competitions when you have a packed bleachers for track and field, and like track and field nerds come out of the woodworks, like and those are my favorite kind of nerds. They're all the stats, it's like, well, you ran a 10-2. Yeah, it was wind dated though. Who cares? Then they go on to this stuff and but his start's terrible and it's like he's running like a 10-5 and you're like, that's pretty good, right? But yeah, a lot of great facilities. Texas A&M had an excellent indoor facility.
A&M does? Okay.
They had it figured out. We had nationals there 2 years. But yeah, it's always interesting going to new places like that. Arkansas was also phenomenal. Yeah, a lot of SEC generally crushed the facility game. They had it figured out. Big Ten, we fell behind on just about every facility. Like I'm talking like the most incredible facilities. SEC probably takes it.
If you could go back and let's say you get an hour with, Joe when he was first introduced to the hammer throw, right? And the coach comes into your life and you're like, hey, this is kind of cool. And let's throw this around a little bit. Like if you could tell yourself anything and just spend, 5 minutes or an hour, whatever, maybe, what would you tell yourself then knowing what you know now?
Oh man. It's hard to know what the butterfly effect would ripple out. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
But I would definitely tell myself that you absolutely can get strong and work on technique at the same time. I had put myself into a mindset very early on that I was going to be a really strong guy, but I almost built it into my identity that I was a bad technician. You know what I mean? Why not strive to be good at both? You know what I mean? It's like that's how the best are the best. You know what I mean? These guys who are out there throwing 80 meters, at Olympic Games, they are unbelievably strong and flawless technicians. It's like, I don't know why I put myself in that box that I did. And so I would tell myself to always challenge yourself technically and really try to master the event as opposed to, bully the event. That's really what I saw myself as an athlete. I saw myself athletically as a bully. The hammer didn't want to do what I wanted it to do. I made it do what I wanted to do, as opposed to the hammer and I are working together to throw as far as possible. That is how you throw far, like sustainably. What I did is I threw far when my nervous system was firing and things were going well. That's when I threw far because physically I just moved the ball as opposed to moving with the ball. And so I would want to challenge myself and be like, hey, you just have the gene. You have the strong gene. Like you don't have to work as hard as you did to get really strong. It'll just happen if you can apply consistent effort. What you don't have is the patient gene. You have to work at the technique, and you're not doing that right now. So let's go. Yeah, I would challenge myself in that way.
You're, doing your Columbine this coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
To see where you stack up with the people at, the high enough level and everything. But how have you transitioned into just the normal Joe Ellis in the life of the post athletics? Like,
Yeah. That's a great question. That's a big reason why this football thing manifested. I couldn't imagine just stopping athletics and moving into the real world. What I needed was a pivoting side goal. And it's to the point where it's like, I love the hammer. I don't need to throw it anymore. It's like when I first stopped, I was like, contemplating that, I was like, if I just stop, I'm gonna lose my mind. It's like I need it, and so I just started pivoting to this football thing. Started like counting this as a goal, and it made it so, honestly the grief of no longer being a high level athlete set in over a much longer span. It's the point where now it's like I'm anticipating eagerly the culmination of this combine, and like, being like, oh, look at that. He ran a 4.92, at 300 pounds. That's like, that's really fast, right? It's like, and it's like, this is, my percentage compared to defensive players of my size. I'm anticipating like ending that and then moving on. And it's like, I am ready now, mentally, and it's like your body lets you know too. It's like being 300 pounds objectively sucks. You never think about putting on your socks until your belly gets in the way, to say the least, so it's going to be nice, and it's like, and then it's like, you got to focus on other athletic goals. You got to focus on, well, even at a young age, you were never a runner. What can you do there? It's like, hey, can you get under a 6-minute mile before you're 30? You know what I mean? It's like, can you get under a 5-minute mile before you're 30? Like how good can you be there? And it's like, and that's the nice thing about that one, is it's a sneaky goal, because it's like, it's a healthy goal. You know what I mean? It's like, I've been focused on moving weight as fast as I can and being as strong as I can. You don't have to look too far, to see it's just not a sustainable, healthy thing. So it's kind of nice that before I'm 30, I'll be shifting gears to more longevity focused enrichment. And I'm okay with that, because it's like, I don't really have many what ifs in the strength department anymore, because that's always in the back of your mind. Oh, what if I could squat 500? What if I could do this kind of stuff? It's like, I know what I'm capable of. It's like, I am highly attuned to what I'm capable of, and I know, and that's what has always driven me athletically. It's just, yeah, it's nice to compete at a high level. Yeah, it's nice to do this, but frankly, my why is always, what can you do? It's why like performance enhancing drugs and stuff never appeal to me in the slightest, because I don't want to know how high or how far Joe with help can throw. I want to know how far I can throw. It doesn't matter. It's like, if I break the world record on my own, great. That's how far I can throw. Like, that's how I know that, like, but it's like, that's the driving force. It's the driving force is, how good are you? It's almost like a soul searching activity. It's like, how good are you on your own? Not just trying to win. Winning generally happens, if you work hard enough and you're realistic with your goals. But it's just like, I'm just fascinated with my personal athletic ability. I'm fascinated with my personal academic ability. Like I just want to know, it's like the search for discovery is so human. And it's one of my big drivers, always has been. And so, that's why it's like, without the vehicle of track and field or the vehicle of football, it's like, I'm going to figure out how fast and far I can run. And that's going to be my why, because I'm curious. Like curiosity is what's always driven me athletically. And it's exciting to be moving into now a third field, where it's like, I've done track, I've done strength, and now I'm doing longevity. And it's just like, this is so interesting. What if I suck at it? Wouldn't that be cool to find out?
I know that this is your first year of like helping out the track team, but I feel like just listening to your story and all the accolades and everything, do you feel like you might want to like get into that more and be that mentor, or be, maybe even one day be a head track coach and help kids get where they want to get to?
I think my speciality will absolutely be in small group introduction to the hammer throw. It's like, I have a skill that can genuinely get someone to college in a short amount of time, that, far and wide, there's not a lot of people that can replicate this skill. And it's like, it would be my pleasure to pass it on to future people. It's like, I don't think my coach, had, I was, I think, the third guy he had sent to college. And since then he sent another guy at a very high level, and then two girls at very high levels. And it's just like, that's like 7-8 people you've changed the lives of, it's like, it's a ripple effect. And and I feel confident in that. It's like I'm kind of sharpening my coaching ability, this year by coaching again. It's been a long time since I've coached, and so it's and it's also nice because coaching middle school, where it's like they're so far removed from potentially going to college, they have no idea, and you have no idea if they're going to be like a high level talent. But my whole thesis on athletics is it doesn't matter if you are a high level talent, how good can you be? It's an individual question. It's like for some people, how good can you be takes them to the Olympics. For some people, it takes them to the JV track meet their senior year. But that's fine, because it's like it's such an individual journey. It's like, and so as an athlete, working with, these middle schoolers, some of which are, they're doing distance on the side, or they're, that's the first time they've touched a shot. It's just like, I don't particularly mind if they never throw a shot again after this year, but I want them to, take this energy into whatever they do want to do, where it's like, how good can I be, in cross country? How good can I be in school? How, what is my limit? Because if you're not finding out what your limits are, I think you're doing yourself a huge disservice. Because only when finding out your true limits, you figure out yourself,
Yeah. I just love this whole mentality, right? Because I feel like in today's culture, it's such a me versus you, right?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of clothes do you wear? How fast did you run compared to me? Can I, moss you? Can I posterize you? You're small, I'm big, right? Like all this stuff is a me versus you comparison, right? So I'm comparing me to you. And I love your message of it's not that at all. It is you versus you. And if you study, like Jordan or a Kobe or listen to you, that is the exact message that they're talking about. They're not chasing a scoring record, or they're not chasing the accolades of, to be at that level. They're trying to be the best version of themselves. I love that. And I love that message.
I think it's massive. I think the you versus other people mentality, it has such obvious failings, because if you're driven by success over others, when you are inevitably beaten, it breaks you. It absolutely does. How do you come back from that mentally? It's incredibly difficult, and a lot of people just fade. You know what I mean? They just fade away. They act like it wasn't important to them ever in the whole time, and that's just doing everyone a disservice. Like I said, I did these football camps in early December, and I'm doing one-on-one bull rush stuff, and it's like even then, even in a sport like football, like it wasn't I am going to push through you. It's I want to see if I can get past you. Like I want to see, it's like it has nothing to do with you. My offensive lineman that I'm going against. It has nothing to do with you. I don't hate you. I don't not like you, and none of that. It's I want to see if I can get past you. I want to see if I can get through you. And it's like if I can, that tells me something about myself. It doesn't tell me anything about you. It's just
and John
entirely
Wooden talked about that a lot. John Wooden, they wouldn't scout other teams. They focused on themselves. How can we run this play better? Because it doesn't matter if it's on the basketball court. It doesn't matter if you're on the football field or, running track. If you can execute the play and you do that, you are going to have success. Maybe you're not going to score a touchdown. Maybe you're not going to hit a home run every time, or whatever sport you want to talk about. But the play is designed to move the ball forward towards the whatever goal you're looking to do: score runs, move a runner, get a basket, whatever. Right? I love this interview. I love it. There's 3 key points, right? Just kind of to summarize some different things that I've picked up that I absolutely love. Number 1 is having a mentor, right? I think there's been some key people in your life that you have learned from, you have drawn inspiration from. They've helped create that greatness and that mindset, and to pull the greatness that is Joe today and the All-American and everything else. They've helped pull that out, right? And number 2 is to surround yourself with like-minded people. Okay, you went to, when you were at Michigan, you were away from your family, away from everyone, right? You experienced life in the general public, right? With people who had ulterior motives. Maybe they were there to party. Maybe they were there to, do whatever. But they didn't have that singular mind of focus of what you had, which was, I want to be great. I want to be a great athlete, and I want to be a great student, right? And you had to surround yourself with people like that. And number 3 is, I mean, there's just no other way to put it other than you just have to put in the work. Flat out, you have to get up early, you have to eat right, you have to sleep, you have to exercise, you have to do the work, whatever it is, right? And this could be applied to a middle school athlete, a middle school student, high school, college. It could be applied to somebody in their job, right? And wanting to get better. You do those 3 things, and those are the big 3 things that I've just seen like themes throughout your whole entire career, and the talk that we've had here of the 3 things that you are kind of built your life on, and the success of, and why you're a 3-time Big Ten champ, and why you're an All-American, and why you've got all these accolades, right? Yeah. I think it's amazing. I think that's great. I think that really sums me up, honestly. If a human can be summed up in 3 things, like those are the things that I value the most, 1, 2, and 3. Beautiful. With 2, I did want to add, it's really important to have you. So like, it's hard to phrase this correctly, but it's just like pride. You know what I mean? And like this whole in it's the enemy. I don't know how else to say it. You know what I mean? It was like when I came to college, I wanted to be just, I don't know. I immediately put myself under my friend Grant's wing, I guess. And it was just like, I was willing to learn, it was, I was willing to be there. I didn't have to be the leader. I didn't have to be the captain. You know what I mean? I didn't care. What I wanted to do was put myself in a position where I would be the best thrower, best teammate, best person I could be. And like society so often tells us, if you're not the leader, you're worthless. And that's so false. You know what I mean? It's like, I've always identified in that way. I've never found myself wanting to be the leader. I've always found myself admiring the number, the lieutenant, the backup role. You know what I mean? It's like, I've like, it's like if every cog in the machine wanted to be the most important one, it wouldn't work. And it's just like, I don't care about that stuff. I want to succeed in my role. I have ambition, obviously. I was a multiple-time Big Ten champ and all that stuff, but it's just like, amongst other people, I like, nothing makes me more satisfied than like it all working. You know what I mean? It's like, if someone's got the gift, if someone's got the leadership bug, let them have it. Lead me. You know what I mean? I want to be led by a courageous, inspiring person. I don't want to be forced into that role, and I don't want to fight for that role. You know what I mean? The best person will rise for that particular job, and great. That's something less on my bandwidth. Now I get to focus on being a better athlete. I don't have to worry about building the team dynamic. I get to find my space, succeed in there with that as well. So like, that was me in a nutshell. It was like, I was a competitive, aggressive guy, but I also knew what I was good at and what I wasn't good at. And so that's where like that crew came in, like, me, Grant, and Andrew. Like, Grant was the guy who wanted to plan everything, and we were like, do it, lead us to the promised land. Like, I'm ready for it. But it's just surrounding yourself with people who really know the pathway, I guess, know the strategy. And that's kind of a contrary opinion a lot of times.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, I just love your drive through the whole story, you sharing from junior year of high school, being like, all right, let's try this new thing. Coach is like, hey, we got these things you can throw around. And you're like, all right, to becoming, like you said, Big Ten champion at Michigan, having a chance to make the Olympics, and then just the drive, even outside of there, just trying to be the best you can be. And I feel like this message can resonate with so many people to get that that fire inside them that they couldn't find. Yeah. Like I know you outside of this in the classroom, and I was just talking, but like, I feel like this drive and fire that you have, I think you can pass down being a coach. Like me and Reggie coach together. Like, yeah, the goal is to win games, but my goal from the beginning, I've told the kids every year, is to get you to the next level, to get you so you have a chance to have that, if that's what you're looking for,
Yeah. And that's the great part about next level. It's like, what does that mean? It's like, are you a JV player trying to get varsity? Are you trying to make a club team? Are you trying to make it to college? Are you just trying to, up your points per game? It's like, how do you get better every day? Because motivation is so fleeting. It fades almost instantly. It's game to game, day to day. What you need is an internal driver. And it's so hard. I don't know how to like that. You know what I mean? Like when people just walk away from something, I go, wait, what? How did you do that? It's like where's the driver? And it's like, creating that and in young people is like, it helps them for the rest of their life. Single most useful thing I think you can do as a coach or teacher.
It's like that, trying to help them with that switch, to turn that switch on for them.
It's like he's wearing a half ward. It's like a switch. Remember that over the top? Yeah. Sylvester Stallone over the top. I love it. I love it. Josh, any parting things with Joe? Joe, any kind of final thoughts that you're thinking about? Things that are on your heart, on your mind, on kind of what you want to get out that we haven't touched on?
I mean, I feel like with me, we've covered, just about my entire serious athletic journey here. I don't know. I think I would definitely reiterate your big 1, 2, and 3 you did just now, Reggie, and that's just find a mentor. It's like they're so important. Like I just wouldn't be where I am or even close without my parents, my coaches, my older teammates, you know what I mean? All these people. Sure. And then the surrounding yourself with the right people, and then finally the trying to get better every day. It's like whatever you have to do to get better, get better.
I love it. Josh, any final thoughts? Anything like that? We'll wrap her up.
I am just amazed, and I'm
right? This is crazy, bro.
I know. Just like awesome. I feel like it's a privilege to hear from you. Like, I know, don't shake your head there, but even though you're the team up north, it's fine. But like, no, it's just cool to actually know someone that's a former athlete like you, and you just give your heart to like everything you put into, and just sharing your wisdom with us and how it's made you the man you are today. And with your family dealing with you being like, I think I can do this one more year. And you're like, you know what? I need to help my family. Like, it's just amazing story. And glad that me and Reggie can use this platform for you to come on and reach people and share.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for having me on. Like, it just felt incredible. Like, say all that as like a narrative, and it's like fundamentally, it's like it sounds very impressive, but it's like it's the daily grind that I loved. It's like I have these memories and all this hardware, but it's just like it's the daily grind. That's what I loved. I loved getting up. I loved pushing myself and practice, and then it's like meets were treats. Competitions that was fun, but it's like that's not what got me going.
I love it. I love it. Yep, absolutely. I'm a big heart guy. Like I feel like I've got a decent knack on reading people where their hearts are at. And I mean, it is all hearts, all gas, let it rip. Let's make it happen with you. And I absolutely have loved this whole talk. So thank you for that. Hey, next time on the Coach and the Cowboy podcast, we're going to talk a little sports. We did our brackets, so we're going to go through the Final Four preview. We're going to see how we did, the good things, the bad things. NFL's got some rule changes. We'll maybe touch on that a little bit, with the kickoff and tackling and whatnot. And we are, in case you didn't know, we're about 1 month closer here. 1 month closer to a life-changing. I know this episode is life-changing, but there is another life change happening in July. It's called the release. Joe, you're gonna think we're dorks, of EA Sports NCAA football on we're PlayStation guys, but super excited about that. Spring football's getting kicked off. Colleges are starting camps right now. They'll be having their spring games coming up here over the next couple weeks, and that's going to be super cool to just talk football, see it again, and not the off-season warriors, but actually seeing some people playing football on the field and not just talking about it. So
and then we also got the Olympics coming up in the
that's
summer.
right. Yeah.
And then the big thing I like is the Masters is coming around the corner. So
that is right. When is that? That's April 10th or something, or whatever. I don't.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're right. I think that's the right date. Yeah.
I think I remember seeing an ad for that.
Yeah, I'm sure Joe's ready to watch some of the Olympics and see who's out there and who's got. We'll have to circle back and have him join like a quick version so we can talk about.
We could do like a preview.
Who he thinks are the top competitors. That should be fun. That if he knows them at all. That would be.
I have my finger on the pulse for all the throwing events, so I could absolutely. It could be a fun education because it's like who are the Americans going? You know what I mean? Like I could do that.
That would be cool. That would be. That's why we did this podcast for you, because the insides of outs of the world that we've never even experienced before.
No, that's cool. That's cool. All right. Well, I appreciate it. And Joe, thank you again. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So thank you for riding along with the Coach and the Cowboy. Until next time, saddle up and keep chasing those dreams.